CPJ market. In 2013, the company started processing and distributing its own branded meat products, such as hamburgers, sausages, bacon, and ready-to-cook pork items. In 2014, the company formed CPJ St. Lucia, a joint venture with the Duboulet family, former owners of the Duboulet Bottling Company in St. Lucia. CPJ debuted on the Jamaica Stock Exchange in July 2011 as part of their plan to grow into new enterprises and markets. I'd like to take this moment to remind you that if you're seeking to expand your portfolio or embark on your very first investment journey, Mayberry Investments can guide you in achieving your financial goals. Follow us on social media and visit our website at www.mayberryinv.com to learn more. Our social media handles should pop up somewhere on the screen. Now let's introduce our special guests for this evening. As I said before, it's Mark Hart and Tom Tyler. Mark is the founder and executive chairman of CPJ. He began his career at the Hart family's group of companies in 1982, eventually becoming the chairman and chief executive officer in 1997. At the age of 22, Mr. Hart established the Apparel Industries Group in 1986, which grew to 5 factories with 2,800 employees. The group secured contracts with Sara Lee Knitwear and Hanes brands, becoming the largest locally owned 807 apparel company in Jamaica's history. Mark is a graduate of the University of Miami, where he gained a Bachelor of Science degree in history and in motion picture production. Didn't know that. Mark produced an award-winning documentary film, Rise Up. As mentioned, Tom Tyler will also be joining us. Tom's the co-founder of CPJ, and with Mr. Hart, they formed the company in 1994. He's currently the co-chairman of the company, but prior to joining CPJ, Mr. Tyler, I beg your pardon, worked at the CPJ, a US-based family company supplying the Caribbean hospitality sector. Tom is the director of CPJ Investments and chairman of CPJ St. Lucia, both of which are subsidiaries of CPJ. Tom was educated at the University of South Florida and holds a degree in gemology from the Gemology Institute of America. Welcome, Mark and Tom. I've learned something both new about both of you. I personally know you to be very astute businessmen from my many years of experience, but it's great to see where your academics started from. Also online, I think we have Gary Parrott. Welcome, Gary. And Chairman Berry, welcome.
Gary's on mute.
Hi, guys. Hi, guys. I think you're all on mute. Mark, Tom, Chris, Gary, thanks. Welcome to the program. Okay, very good. Let me jump into the company profile first so I can give you folks out there a bit of an investor's view of CPJ and tell you a little bit about why I love the company. But I think first I want to declare interest. Mayberry Investments Limited is a top 10 shareholder in CPJ. We really like this company. We collectively own about 19.5%. And we, together with the top 10 shareholders, control about 80% of the company. Additionally, we are working very closely with CPJ to help them grow the business. That aside, I want to jump into the analysis. Now, first off, let's just look at the chart here that shows the stock performance. And you can see that the stock's definitely taken a beating during the COVID environment when the entire tourism sector shut down. And we've seen the stock trade as low as $2 and trade as high as $4.50. Today, it closed at approximately $4.10, which reflects a PE ratio of 23 times. Sorry, that reflects, I beg your pardon, in a market where the average PE ratio is about 23 times, its PE would be negative because its trailing earnings are actually negative at about $8.1 million US. The company today has a market cap of about $4.5 billion, while its peak market cap has been as high as $7 billion. So bear that in mind. Today, the stock is trading by about 30 to 40% below its peak. Going on to the next slide, and I'm going to tell you why I think better days are ahead. But again, in the last 9 months, we see the loss being about $3.8 million, and that's not all cash because they do have depreciation in that number. Company has a very strong balance sheet with $54 million US in assets, $14 million in equity, and over $5 million of cash sitting down on the balance sheet. As I said before, this stock's traded as high as $7.15. I like to think of it as a stock that should be at about $5.20 in the upcoming months, and the potential to definitely get back to $7 as we see the market recovery. Speaking of the market recovery, on the next slide, I want to give you a feel. Again, CPJ earns most of its income from the tourism sector as the sort of largest purveyor of goods to the tourism industry. And so when tourism is down, their business will obviously be down. And what you can see here from the total visitor arrivals to date is that we can see that total visitor arrivals are down by about 85%. And that's numbers that have been published through to April. As we continue the conversation with these folks, I think we're going to appreciate that we've seen tremendous recovery as of June, and we expect significant recovery into July and August. So moving into our very first question, now that I've done my brief company overview, and again, I want to make the point that most folks who are dependent on tourism have seen losses with tourism being down by 80%, but again, we remain confident that tourism is back and that these numbers will therefore improve significantly going forward. So don't miss the train, guys, when I told you this $4 stock will be $6 within the next 12 months. Just my prediction. Jumping into the questions, as we talk a little bit more, Mark and Tom, first question for you guys. How badly were sales affected by COVID-19?
So, Dan, first of all, I'd like to say hello to the audience. I know you have a large audience out there. I hope they all showed up to see Tom and I today. And then getting straight into the meat of it, obviously COVID came to a very dramatic stop in the industry that we service, which is the hospitality sector. We were basically on a roll coming into the last months of the year. We were hitting some sales records. And of course, we have a supply chain from all over the world. So the industry shut down within a very short period of time. Literally, I think within 2 weeks, the last plane took off with the last tourist in Jamaica. And at that time, we still had 65 containers of food to feed the tourism industry and supply them. So it was dramatic. And then, it was basically shut until I think around July. So it was shut for about 4 months. No movement at all. So the retail side of our business represents about 15% of our company's sale. So effectively, we're down to about 15% of our normal sales activity for those first 4 months. We pivoted with that bucket deal that made us famous, put us on the map. So we basically took our hotel commodity goods, which are generally, in very large quantity sizes, and we have a processing plant. We had some extra rooms and packaging equipment, and we broke up, large pieces of cheese and big bags of beans, and we created these incredible deals. And that's how we were able to kind of manage our inventory, to save it, to get some cash back into the company. Tom beside me, I know he'll speak a little bit later. He was very proactive in collecting. We had about 15 million US on the road. And, because of CPJ's prominence in the industry and the importance that the customers place on the service that we provide, Tom was able to pull in pretty much everything. So we were severely impacted. What could have been a catastrophic event for us was actually quite well managed, I would say.
Yeah. Yes, I mean,
If I'd like to say, when the lights got turned out and all the people left Jamaica, we actually went into the hunker down mode. And number one, it was collect our receivables so we could pay our vendors and our vendor partners. And as Mark said, we were very successful in collecting pretty much 95%, 99%, 99% of all our outstandings on the street in a reasonable amount of time. And then communicating with our supplier partners to make sure that
We paid
paid everybody on time and kept in good standings. And also the bucket deal was an amazing thing that we did. Created a lot of goodwill.
So impacted heavily, Dan, but we did a lot of cost containment, and we actually built up the retail side a little bit through the deals that we did and doing some direct marketing and so forth.
Excellent. Moving on to my next question. Tell me, Tom, do you think the worst is behind you, and how do you feel the month of June was in terms of, let's use tourism arrivals or occupancy, something that speaks indirectly to how well you did, indirectly. How was June for you guys?
Well, how's June for us?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think that the tourist industry is on a V recovery. We're not on a U. Hotels are coming back. They're opening. They're filling up very, very quickly. There's some trailing properties that haven't reopened but will soon open in July. So the recovery's a quick recovery for our core business.
Great. So I was at a hotel last week at a retreat. They were 60% full, and I sensed that in general for the month of June, occupancy levels were pretty high, maybe averaging 50% or thereabouts. Is that consistent with what you guys experienced?
We're actually seeing more business, Dan, because CPJ is sort of the go-to place for the hotels for supply chain, right? So we carry a very wide range of product. And with COVID, I don't think necessarily hotels want to have to bother with like trying to figure out the supply chain by going to, all these little guys that are out there trying to compete in certain spaces. Plus with the global supply chain challenges out there, Tom got very active in talking back to those vendors that we managed during the crisis. The relationships are very strong, and we were able to get goods where other companies were not able to get goods. So we have a pretty good supply chain for CPJ and for our customers. Of course, it's a global problem, and it's not going to be perfect, but we're doing our best, and we're certainly going to make sure that the hotels and our customers can provide a good product to their guests that come here and expect it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Tom. Chairman Berry, I know you're waiting to ask a question. Let you jump straight in at it. You're muted, Chairman Berry. You're muted, Chris.
Check with the studio. Come back to me later.
You're on.
We're hearing you now.
Okay. So before I ask a question, I just want to say something that Mark and Tom wouldn't say, but I think it's really fantastic leadership on their part. So the warehouses and the facilities that CPJ operates from are basically owned by Mark and his family, and we pay a lease. And when Mark saw that, the whole world was coming to an end, he and his family took a huge cut in what they charged the company so that we could survive this crisis. And Tom took a massive cut in his personal salary, which is quite significant, if I might say so myself. And I think the shareholders need to know about these personal, acts that they did, because they're not going to talk about it, but I know about it, and I really want to thank them on behalf of the shareholders for, leading from the front, because it was a tough time, and lots of companies all over the world never made it through COVID, and we did, and we're going to hit the ball out of the Park.
So,
Thank you. Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank-
Appreciate it.
I'd also like to just add, our staff played a big role in that as well. We have a lot of goodwill within our organization. And, you know, people have made sacrifices on salaries, not just from the top. We did lead from the top and took the deepest cuts, but everybody down to, you know, the people, the associates in the plants and so forth, made some sacrifices. Everybody, I'm glad to report, is back to full remuneration. But, you know, we're very, and also we had some related party creditors, family members and so forth that took reductions in interest rates and so forth. So it's been a collaboration of effort, and thanks for highlighting that, Chris. But it certainly put us in a very strong position. Our cash at the end of this 12 months, only making profits in 2 out of 12 months. We have a significant amount of cash resources, and we haven't touched one bank line since the beginning of COVID.
impressive.
That's pretty,
And-
yeah, not one bank line.
And we never stopped paying interest to any of our creditors
Right.
and paying our debts throughout the whole process. So your reputation is what you live by in
Excellent.
business.
Excellent. I totally agree. And with all of those bank lines that you have, tell me, are there any plans in the pipeline to expand locally or regionally through partnerships or acquisitions?
Well, you know, through COVID, Dan, we've had a lot of time to reflect on a lot of things. When business is down, I have to tell you, we were working harder than ever in the last 12 months.
Restructuring the company.
Restructuring the company. Obviously, we had a plan to, or we were in the process of upgrading our IT system at the time. COVID hit, and we used the downtime to implement most of our IT projects. So warehousing system, our ERP system, upgraded and updated our item files, purchasing system. We have a shipping system that we're implementing now. So we became much more efficient, and we used that time of being slow to implement those projects. And I have to say that was Mrs. Hart with our CIO led that whole process. As far as going forward, obviously we're going to continue with our IT improvements, but we do have some nice things that are on the board. Number one, we've had a small store here at CPJ. It's been around for 12, 13, 14 years. It's about 1,200 square feet. And I got to tell you, that's the best piece of retail sales space ever. That little store just kicks out products. So we are expanding our store. That's in process right now at CPJ. I think that project will be done by October, November this year. So we're making the necessary moves, and we're expanding that to a 6,000 square foot store. It's going to be a what we call a chef's market store. So we'll be able to expand our products to the small restaurants, villas, etc., on the North Coast to be able to buy small amounts in pieces of our products, which will help us a lot. Also, that will help us with our B2C sales, which is another IT project that's in the works. The second thing that we're looking at is we have an acquisition in Jamaica that we're toying with, and I don't think we can speak any more about that, but we found something that could be a great fit for CPJ, and we're exploring that possibility right now. So enhancement to our business and current line of products. In St. Lucia pivoted very well through the pandemic, smaller operation, selling stuff off the trucks, into the communities. And we had a small store there as well, 3,000 square feet that we built back in 2018. We expanded that store to 8,000 square feet. So we're a full grocery store now in St. Lucia, and that's been open for May and June, those 2 months are full months. So that we got that done during COVID. So we built our first full line grocery store in St. Lucia. We currently have 2 more locations that have been confirmed. One that we'll get this year, which will be about 9,000 square feet, which is in the center of Castries, an incredible location. So we're working on breaking ground on that one, and hopefully that'll be done within the next 6 to 9 months. And then we had another opportunity in the north of St. Lucia, which is a building that's a public-private partnership, which is being developed. And we have put our name down for that space, which is 19,000 square feet, which will be 15,000 square feet in the front. So we're going into the grocery store business in St. Lucia, but not in Jamaica. Also on a regional basis, we have been looking at other opportunities there, and we're exploring them and working on some other things. But again, I think that's all I would have to say on that particular subject.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that. Remind me, St. Lucia did about $15 million in sales. In the next in the next 2-3 years, where do you see that number going?
With this expansion, I think that we can go to $50 million between our distribution and our in the 3 retail stores. That's in 3 years' time.
Very good. So 15 to 50.
To get it all built up.
Sounds really great. Third question for me. How do you plan to take advantage of the reopening of the entertainment sector? What would your involvement look like as a leading distributor of alcohol beverages?
Well, number one, I just want to tell you about our alcohol beverages, right? We have an amazing portfolio at CPJ between our wine and spirits. And I like to say that we have the products that sell, right? We represent Bacardi, which is Grey Goose, Dewar's, Bombay Sapphire, Patron, which are all leading items that sell. When you're in the liquor business, you want to sell things that people really want. And that lineup is stuff that goes on every bar and every party. We also represent Jack Daniel's, El Jimador Tequila, which are, again, items that are #1 sellers in their category. Remy Martin is another one that we represent, and we're the #1 purchaser of Remy Martin in the Caribbean. So on the wine and spirits side, we have a product called Luc Belaire, which is the party drink from Puff Daddy, and those guys created it. And whenever there's a party, they want Luc Belaire, right? So I think that we're well positioned. Prior to COVID, we were on a record-breaking year with our 2 divisions there at about 10 million each. And looking at the numbers of the other imports, we were by far the biggest importer in wine and in spirits with our brands. And we feel that when the entertainment industry does open, we'll be there to support them in putting these #1 products back into the hands of the consumers.
Thanks for that. Appreciate that, guys. Gary, haven't heard from you this evening. I'm sure you have a question for Mark and Tom.
Yes, I do. I mean, you know, when Tom gets going, you know, it's just amazing. You know, it just tells you how many great things are going to happen to this company. I mean, he just rolls off the tip of the tongue. You know, but my question to Mark and Tom is, you know, you had to scale down. Now that COVID looks like it's going away and our passenger numbers are going up, how are you going to get back to your pre-COVID levels on the supply chain side? Because I'm hearing that there are a lot of issues in the supply chain, from shipping, etc.
Right. Well, Gary, let me first tell you, if you're new on the block in this business, nobody's picking up the phone. If you haven't paid your bills, they're not going to sell you, because there's more buyers than sellers right now. There are shortages of product across the world. So we have a couple of challenges that we need to overcome. #1, logistics. If you're coming from Asia, what we used to pay $3,000 a container, it's now $15,000, and you have to beg for that container and hope that it gets here. So Asia is really a mess on getting products here. Europe up about 100% in some areas. US overland freight up 120%. So anything that you're bringing from the north down to the south is more expensive. So that's number one challenge, is logistics and getting it here. Number two is availability of products. And I have to tell you, you know, I've been buying all my life. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 40 years. And it takes that personal touch and picking up the telephone and talking to the vendors and making sure you're at the front of the line to get the products. So during COVID, we had, God, I don't know how many people purchasing. We had people in Miami, we had people in Jamaica, we had people in St. Lucia. We scaled down our staff in that area, and we reopened with a staff all based in Jamaica. Our IT systems have been upgraded, so our information is much more readily available, and a lot of those tools that we've implemented are now paying off. So we have a very lean team for procurement right now. I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate, but I'm sort of sitting on top of that, and we got ahead of the curve when I would say in April, May, we started to see the crack, the vaccine starting to happen. So we started making our moves early on positioning ourselves with product to come in at this time. So our inventory is down, and as soon as the inventory comes in, it's flying out the door. We're trying to increase our inventory, but the draw is very, very strong right now. But I think that if anybody can do it and have the products here, you're talking to the two guys that can make it happen. So we treat our vendors right, our vendor partnerships right. We pay our bills on time, which is the key in this situation, because if you have a bad name out there as far as paying, you're not getting goods. If you don't know the person to talk to, you're not getting goods. In each segment that we buy right now, be it in the wine and spirits, in sparkling, there's no bottles and boxes in France right now. In protein, they're cutting your orders. So you got to know the right person to call to get what you need. I won't get into the details of what's coming or how much we have coming, but
It's a lot.
it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm counting containers in my head in the middle of the night, unfortunately, but that's the way it's.
Excellent. So guys, tell me a little bit, what are some of the strategies CPJ plans to employ as tourism rebounds to increase your market share or increase your competitiveness?
Well,
is that your question?
Yeah, it could be.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Okay, well, number one, we had the segments that we're represent, and then we have the commodity segments. And then there were segments that we weren't in. I would tell you that I've gotten a lot of phone calls, and we're bringing things that we never brought before, just because of the factors that we just spoke about earlier. So vendors that may have been going somewhere else may be calling us to say, hey, we need an alternative to get to the route to market. So we picked up some lines of products that we didn't sell before due to COVID.
And also there's a retail push.
Yeah.
We've been focusing, during COVID on developing the retail team and the strategies that we have for more focused selling of our retail portfolio. And we're seeing where we're selling, more at better margins, more targeted. And we've developed a nice team of sales managers and associates. And I think that area is definitely something that we see we can balance the company's sales in the future. Just so, we don't expect another pandemic, but, we certainly would like to balance the sales more than 15%.
Our retail sales are basically premium products. People think about CPJ as premium products. our wine and spirits in the stores, which is discretionary income. We don't sell corned beef and we don't sell
Flour.
flour, right? I think if you go to the dairy box now, you'll see a new product called Arla.
Danish cheese.
A Danish cheese.
Wonderful.
Amazing line. We have Kerrygold in the dairy box now, and we have something else that's going to be going in the dairy box that'll be here very soon. So we're targeting areas of the grocery store that we want to be in. We feel that we have a very strong cold chain with our facility here and our trucks. So chilled and frozen will be an area that we're really going to push in, and I think you'll see that in the upcoming months as we push into those areas. You'll know that we're there. It's going to be very interesting.
Look forward to it. Look forward to it. I know it's only less than 1% of your sales, but when do you plan to open up back the CPJ food court in Kingston?
It is actually open. It's just not open in the same, doesn't have the same offering as it had before. But we have a lot of grab and go. Some very interesting caterers are making food items there. So food and beverage is not our core business, Dan. If you'd like to go in there and operate it for us, please call me after the show, and we can work something out. We actually leased out the crew bar upstairs to some pretty savvy operators, part of the Dream Group, and they've had a tough time with COVID and so forth, but I think they're doing a lot better job at that than we would.
Like I said, I know it's less than 1% of your sales. So some Kingstonians see CPJ Market and think that it has anything to do with anything. So just wanted to put that out there. Chairman Berry, we haven't heard from you in a bit. Any more questions from you?
Yes, well, the question I have, guys, is like, people think of us as, traders, but I think people don't understand that we got to plan 3-6 months in advance. Some of our lead times are 3-6 months in advance. So Tom, I want you, how do you plan 3-6 months in advance? Tell me, in a COVID time, tell me about that.
I don't want to say it on TV how you plan. There's a lot of gut instinct to this business, right? And if you don't have the products, you have nothing to sell, right? So you got to know what sells, and you got to have the gut instinct to make sure that you have those products here for your clients. So during COVID, obviously, in July of last year, we tried to plan our sales out and make a plan for the year, our budget out our sales. And everything that we did didn't work out because something else happened and something else changed. By December, we made money in December, and we said, God, we
turned the corner.
We turned the corner, we're back. And then in January, February,
they shut it down.
The U.S. government said everybody has to get tested. That goes back into the States, and
Canada locked down.
And Canada locked down, so there was no sales. So during COVID, we were very, very cautious. But once we got past the general election in the United States, we got past the insurrection in the United States, and we got the vaccines rolling out, and we saw that coming. That's when the light at the end of the tunnel started to glimmer, right? At that time, I would say I spent a lot of downtime when there wasn't a lot to do, doing some research on other things, which are paying off now. But you have to know.
And the other thing, Tom, is that being here in Montego Bay, we have grown up around tourism. You mentioned in the prelude that Tom's family were involved with the hospitality sector. His mother was an icon in the industry, Margaret Tyler. She basically had a little office in Miami full of catalogs. And if Butch Stewart or John Issa or even Eddie Siago, when he did his hotel, needed to build out a kitchen or do the rooms, they would go and sit down with Margaret, and maybe she would invite in Tom to come
That's if I was lucky.
and if he was lucky, right? And they would pull out their catalogs, and so they developed deep relationships. And my family has been very close to tourism, so we kind of have a little bit of a crystal ball down here. All our friends are in tourism, whether it's Adam Stewart or John Biles with Choctaw or Ian Dare and Margaritaville. We're all in it together, so we kind of get to see. Participate in sort of opening it back up and sort of knowing exactly what's happening on the ground.
Basically, we go from bottom up or top down. We can call the CEO of Playa Alex Stanlin, or we can go to the loading dock and walk through the back door. We know it from both sides.
Yeah, we're integral into these. We've won that GHTA Purveyor of the Award, which I have it all on the wall here. Tom fights me because he sits on the other side of the street, and he keeps saying, "Mark, when am I getting my awards over there?" But we have 10 of those awards in the last 15 years, and it's something that we're very proud about. Even the year that we had our big IT crash in 2018, which was a traumatic event on the company. We were awarded that year for invaluable service to the industry. And, we're really integral in the industry, and we just take it very seriously that we need to make sure that they have the things that they need to be successful.
Listen, I always tell the customer, their success is our success. So we need to do whatever we need to do to try to make them successful. Service is the key. So,
okay, guys, don't ramble on forever. I have a follow-up question. So, we supply the hotels in protein. People think of us as the beef people and the pork people. We're king of that kind of business. But I hear a little birdie told me, I'm not sure if it's true. We got some badass seafood. Is it true, Tom? Tell me about the seafood, man.
Now we're gonna have to kill you, Chris Berry.
Boy, you're gonna have to be
now
dead.
We're gonna have to kill you, Chris Berry.
Tell me about the seafood.
No, we're partnered with a very, very strong seafood global supplier, and we've got a few tricks coming. As I said, we're making some push in the retail, but we don't want to divulge too much right now.
We don't want to divulge too much, but yeah, we sell a little seafood.
Yeah.
Good
It's a big space.
Good deal, gentlemen. So losses in the shareholders' returns were reported for the 9 months, March 2021. How do you approach rebuilding shareholder confidence, gentlemen?
Okay, so obviously we were going to lose money in COVID. I mean, we had a huge entity here, 450 people, a large carrying cost. Chris has already mentioned some of the things that we did to reduce our costs. Now that the business is back and all that IT that Tom spoke about has been implemented, the company has gone from 450 people down to 315 people, right? So what we have done is made the company a lot more efficient. And we see that we think we can go back to the normal levels of business without significantly growing, the amount of people that we have employed at CPJ. And it's all about efficiency. We've taken out I think we will have taken out close to $600,000 a year between basically reshaping the company, being more efficient, having better management of our inventory and our supply chain. And I think we can go back to a similar level of activity and gross profit earned with a lot less cost. So that would naturally lead to much higher profits. And, we're sort of in a reporting period right now, Dan, as you would well know. So I know you've told your listeners and investors that it might be a good opportunity. I think you're being conservative, but we're not going to give any specifics right now.
I appreciate that. And I believe your top 10 shareholders are already very happy who own 83% of the business or thereabouts. All right, guys. Well, thanks for that, guys. I appreciate that. I hope you guys out there found this very informative. I'd like to go to the giveaways. Today's winners include Erin Blantin, Life of Sag, Venice Palmer, Samoya Cochrane, Mario Galbert, and Matthew Preston. Thanks for participating, guys. Now, going over to our top stock picks for the week. Great. So I gave you CPJ before, which, as I said to you guys, will be up over $6 in the next year. Now I want to give you another one, Last Sales Financials. And if my guys will put that up on the screen, I want to show you Last F has traded as low as $2 and as high as $3.95 in the last 15 months or so. Today it's at $3.11, which represents a P of 25 times, with a trailing earnings of 156 million. Next slide. We have $3.95 billion market cap, $1.7 billion in shareholders' equity. And when we look at the results for the period ended March 2021, we can see how this represents a pretty notable turnaround from the year before. 156 million versus a loss in the year before. Having said that, I do want to make it very clear that this is a company that has significant potential in the micro-lending business, and they've taken quite a bit of losses in the past, and I expect this company to bounce back strong and for us to see the stock price jumping by at least 25 to 30% in the next 12 months. Strong balance sheet, strong operating profit, in a sector, micro-lending sector, where they do reasonably well. Next slide. Again, looking at the quarter's results, you can see how badly in the last 5 running quarters they were impacted by COVID, taking big write-offs in their Q4, then Q1, and then bouncing back pretty strongly in their second and third quarters. And fourth quarter traditionally has not been a great quarter for them traditionally, so I expect in the very next quarter that we're going to see a huge jump in profitability. Look out for it. Remember, I told you guys. Great. Moving on to our gainers and decliners, starting with our decliners first. This week we have CAC down by 11%, QWI down by 9.68%, South down by 5.82%, First Rock down by 5.74%, and SOS down by 5%. On to our gainers. This week we have Sterling Investments up 15.5%, Seprod up 13.86%, West Indies up 11%, Siboney up 10%, and finally Express Catering Limited up by 7.43%. Next segment is our foreign exchange. And as usual, we start with this first graph, which shows the devaluation over the last 4 or 5 years, which demonstrates an average devaluation rate of roughly 3% per annum. But that hasn't been linear. As we can see on the next slide, we can see some peaks and troughs, with the dollar having a peak of about 155 in the last 6 or so months and a low of 142. Year to date, we can see how the exchange rate has devalued on the next slide by about 5.24%, moving from 142.65 to 150.13. If you were to annualize that, that would represent an annualized devaluation rate of 10.63%. But I think at 150, and with tourism coming back, we may see this checking a little bit. Chairman Berry, what are your expectations or comments generally? Sorry, Gary, what are your comments or expectations generally in relation to the foreign exchange moving forward, with the summer being here and tourism looking strong?
Well, what's interesting, Dan, if you put back up the graph, the movement of the exchange, we had gotten to a point where we figured it had bottomed out and was moving to trend back up. But what's interesting this week, some supply seems to have come to market. housing break and start to devalue again. So I think, you know, the strong
Okay, apologies everyone. We seem to be having some internet connection challenges with Gary, but I think he was speaking to the clear trends, the ups and the downs, and feeling like we're in that zone. We think the US dollar earnings over the next 2-3 months are going to be pretty strong, and so we don't expect any further significant devaluation within the next quarter or so. We look forward to tourism coming back strong, which will help us on the dollar. We look forward to tourism coming back strong, which we think will help CPJ's numbers significantly. And I think Tom and Mark were very conservative in how they spoke, as they should be. But I'm certainly expecting to see first quarter for CPJ bombing and doing exceptionally well. And we think there are great opportunities going forward for them to consolidate, merge, acquire, expand, grow their business. Tom talked about what's happening in St. Lucia and the possibility of growing sales over the next 3 years from 15 million to 50 million US dollars. I think that's real. There are great opportunities there. All in all, I think it's been a great program this evening. I'd like to thank Chairman Berry for his contributions, Gary Peart, of course, for his contributions, and of course our very special guests we had tonight. So to our viewers, thank you all for being a part of our weekly investor forum. I'd like to give a special shout out to our guests, Mark Hart, Tom Tyler. I cannot, Mark, forgive me, help but give a big up to Candice, who also works behind the scenes to make sure you guys are kept honest and do well. We're certainly looking forward, folks out there, to having yet another insightful discussion in the upcoming week. Please be sure to follow us on social media, to stay tuned to us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to our Mayberry channel, Mayberry Investments Limited. Thank you all viewers for tuning in today for a very insightful presentation from CPJ. Keep safe everybody, and remember, wise investors, slow and steady wins the race. Goodbye.